create some sort of incentive for them to get some business, even though they're not in sales. But right. So for example, it's, not everyone does it, but I'm a plumber. I'm working on this house. We're going to be there this afternoon. Hopefully you've got a branded truck and everything else. But, maybe the foreman guy, maybe he just takes the moment and you create as the owner, like, hey, when you're doing this, go to the next 5 houses on either side and across the street. Just knock on the door, introduce yourself. Hey, I'm with XYZ. We're helping out your neighbor here. You probably are okay, but listen, I'd love to just leave a card here. Or if you have something that you've been thinking about taking a look at, we'd love to do a free, estimate for you and leave something there. Right. And if that results in getting some business, like, give that guy a chunk of cash.
Papaya! Hello all, and welcome to another episode of Transform Your Future with me, Eddie Isin, where I sit down with entrepreneurs, thought leaders, and high achievers as they identify areas I can improve on and guide me to further my self-improvement practice. For more information and insights, join the newsletter at transformyourfuture.com, where I write about reinvention, personal growth, and identity. We want to hear from you. Let us know how we can improve your experience. Maybe you have some topics that you'd like for us to cover. Please reach out to us through the website, your podcast app, or text me directly at 813-722-1417. I want to hear from you. My guest today is Pete Slaga. We had a great time together, and Pete is genuinely a great person. Pete has owned and operated several businesses and worked for several startups. Most of his experience is in sales, sales leadership, and business development, which we discussed quite a bit. He currently works with Schooly Mitchell as a business optimization specialist. Pete shares his business expertise with small businesses and helps them to focus on what they do best, serving their customers' needs. As a business optimization specialist, though, he and his team of cost analysts can help small to medium-sized businesses save time and money by identifying what they are overpaying for and put those savings back in their pockets. What I love about the program is there's no cost for it unless they save you money, and then it's a small percentage of the savings. If your business is interested in saving on products and services you regularly purchase, use the link in the show notes to set up a call and find out how much they can save you today. Welcome, Pete. I appreciate you coming in and spending some time with me and sharing your expertise. We're going to talk about sales and service and working at a high level and your leadership skills. Let's just jump right in. Tell me a little bit about your sales background and your sales experience.
Yeah, absolutely. Probably a born salesman, not by choice, but I don't know, I guess just by happenstance with that, right? Like, always been trying to sell something or do something or be a businessman in some regards, right? And made a lot of mistakes, but that's how we all learn, right? And the funny thing about that is, in school, you're ingrained like not to make mistakes. And what I've learned, and I think a lot of the people out there that are successful business people, is you're going to make mistakes. Everyone makes mistakes. It's just making them fast enough and not repeating those mistakes, right? That definitely is sort of the key to it. And with the sales, man, I've owned a brokerage firm and built that up to one of the largest in the country. And then I also was a regional sales manager for a startup company, a vacation rental company that eventually was sold. It went public. Unfortunately, didn't buy a Lambo or anything. Wasn't that much money on my end in terms of compensation. But, I had to work with salespeople, hire salespeople, learn what makes them tick. And it was real challenging because they were all over the Southwest and Hawaii. So a lot of it was remote. So getting to see them in person was very valuable. So, hopefully the people listening here, I can at least share a couple nuggets out of it that they'll get to and be like, aha, that makes sense, right? So just trying to get a little bit better every day myself, and hopefully that's why people are listening to this as well.
Yes, sir. It reminds me of, I love movies, right? So I like to quote movies. In Jerry Maguire, when the seasoned agent there is talking, he has this one line. He says, I failed more than I succeeded. And I think that's the truth, right? We have to fail.
Yeah.
We have to go out there. We have to make mistakes. And then we learn from them. We get that feedback loop going and we pivot or change, or we keep going the same way or redouble our efforts. But absolutely, we've got to fall down and make mistakes and learn from them. Absolutely. That's the truth about all life, right?
Yeah. So much. Yeah, exactly.
So what are some tips you have for working a sales team remotely?
Yeah, absolutely. So the first thing is, right, if you're inheriting a team, which I inherited a team, you can't go in there with guns a-blazing, being like, I'm going to change this, I'm going to do this. You guys are doing it all wrong. The main thing is you got to spend a little bit of time to learn about them. And learn a little bit about their family, hear them out. Like, what's going on with you? Like, what are, you need to get to a point where they have to understand that you care for them. And that they need to trust you, and they have to trust you, and you've got to be able to earn that trust. It's not just given because you are the boss. And then definitely on the remote side of things, just touching on that caring was showing up and being present with them and spending some time with them. And my good buddy Rob had this great line. He's like, you can fake caring, but you can't fake showing up. Right? You just can't,
yes.
right? And that shows like, I'm investing time in you. So, even if you're not doing a remote team, it's like, hey, you know what, employee, let's go to lunch. Like, hey man, let's go to breakfast. Like, it's on me. And just spend 30 minutes or an hour just learning about them and their family or whatever else it may be, right? Their fears, their background. That's social currency, goals, everything. Like, hey, how can I help you? That's definitely, that's valuable stuff. That's valuable currency that you can use when you need to maybe go with that employee and push them a little bit extra because we need, a common goal or need to do something, right? They're going to run through walls for people that they care for. Yeah.
So I know some of the challenges that salespeople face often. They have several. I know one is about leads and about getting new business, because sometimes they focus all their attention to get the new business, and then they spend a lot of time fulfilling the business. And then when they go back, they don't have a pipeline now, so they got to go back and fill the pipeline again and build momentum again. So how do you relate to that, and what are some of the things that you do to make sure you're constantly feeding your pipeline?
You need to be intentional in your planning of what you're doing. So, that first part can be tough, right? For people, just the outreach, doing all of that. And then you've got all this and you're kind of like cultivating it. I guess use an analogy of like a farmer. He's planted, he's got it, he's tended the crops, he's harvested. And then it's like, oh man, now I got to plant. No, what you need to do is plant, and then, don't plant your whole farm, plant, keep planting so you have something in there. So you have to just block out some time to do that. But before you do that, you need to just kind of take some time to think about it and how you want to structure that, or reach out to someone that's been successful in whatever industry you are. and find out how they've done it.
Mm.
It's all been done before, whether you're
Right.
a book guy or just meet with people or podcast person or whatever, like there's so much out there that you can find to help you be successful in life.
Mm-hmm.
But you got to
Mm-hmm.
take the time to do it, right? You do.
Yeah. So I mean, I agree. I agree 100%. I always say you have to structure, a couple of hours every day to constantly keep looking for new business and getting, meeting new people, right? So that this way you don't end up in that situation where you don't have anybody to talk to and you have to go find them. Yeah.
Yeah.
So and
Yeah.
that's
And
a
I would,
popular strategy.
and I would say this, with your salespeople, or not, you may not even look at them in salespeople, right? Like, so for example, right, we are, the purpose of part of this podcast is to be, help out those that are, in professional trades, blue collar trades, right? And as an
Mm-hmm.
example, they might
Mm-hmm.
be plumbers, they might be pest control, they might be roofing controller or whatever. Take a little bit of time to, coach and train your people that are on the front line who are dealing with the customer. And I wouldn't say, I don't know, like if I like dealing with, but are interacting with the customer,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that I would strongly encourage is create some sort of incentive for them to get some business, even though they're not in sales. But right. So for example, it's, not everyone does it, but I'm a plumber. I'm working on this house. We're going to be there this afternoon. Hopefully you've got a branded truck and everything else. But, maybe the foreman guy, maybe he just takes the moment and you create as the owner, like, hey, when you're doing this, go to the next 5 houses on either side and across the street. Just knock on the
Mm-hmm.
door, introduce yourself. Hey, I'm with XYZ. We're helping out your neighbor here. You probably are okay, but listen, I'd love to just leave a card here. Or if you have something that you've been thinking about taking a look at, we'd love to do a free, estimate for you and
Yeah.
leave
Yeah.
something there. Right. And if
Yeah.
that results in getting some business, like give that guy a chunk of cash. And you know what?
Yeah.
He's going to be doing that, because if you just don't do anything and you're like, thanks for the business, he's going to be like, he's not going to do that, or he's going to be half-hearted, or he's going to be like, you know what? I knocked on
Right.
all those 10 doors and no one was there. But if it's like, right, I don't know, you give them you give them a C note, like a brick, like $100 cash for doing that. I guarantee he's going to be motivated to see if he
Do
can
it
get,
again.
do it
Yeah.
again, right?
Yeah.
Align your incentives with your team and hire good people, and that will go a long way in towards growing your business and getting referrals
Mm-hmm.
and in
Mm-hmm.
keeping people motivated. Right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, yeah,
So tell me a little bit about, I know currently, you're really helping those businesses to save money from all the things that they're currently buying and purchasing right now. Um,
mm-hmm.
and we deal a lot with, home service businesses, big companies that, have trucks and they're sending people out to homes for emergency visits and whatnot. So there's a lot that they're involved in, that they have a lot of
Yeah.
monthly fees. Do you want to talk a little
Mm-hmm.
bit about some of the ways that your company helps that and how it works?
Yeah. So the company I own a franchise in is Schooly Mitchell. They've been in business for 20 years. They've helped out over 28,000 business owners. And the best way I kind of like to frame this is, you're a business owner, right? Let's just call it Joe's Plumbing. He
Mm-hmm.
starts
Mm-hmm.
up, and the first thing Joe needs is like, I need for a way for people to pay me, right? So I'm going to get a credit
Mm-hmm.
card system, and I need people
Yes.
to reach out to me. So I need a phone. And as he expands his business, he needs a couple more phones and mobile phones. And then he needs, maybe some tablets that are connected to, a cellular plan, so we can shoot out estimates and accept, swipes, and maybe some phone lines in the home office. Well, he's not doing that every time and like negotiating the best deal with the phone company, most likely, or, the credit card company, or fleet tracking, or whatever it is. You're just doing it because you only have so much time in the day and the week. And so you have to prioritize really where you're going to put your focus on, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So what we have found is that, obviously those other side, those businesses you're paying, those vendors, like, they're not giving you the rock bottom prices. Like, they're putting some fat on those costs. And we've found that we are able to save somewhere between 20 and 30%.
Wow.
Of what people are currently spending on, right? Which is significant. It adds up.
Very.
Depending on the size of the company, typically a company for us, like, they need to have probably 10 or more employees, where it's like really a wow, like, oh man, this is significant. But those areas that we're doing this in are in your telecom. So that's your telephone, that's your wireless, that's your internet, right? We're doing it in merchant services, credit card. And I'm going to talk about that a little bit later on, because that's the Wild West. It's crazy. That's one industry that says, oh, here it is, and here's your rate to process credit cards. And there's a whole lot behind that. Small package shipping, think FedEx, UPS type thing, waste, specialized waste, right? If you are, getting roll-offs, or you need special waste, like, those things can be negotiated. If you've got a lot of fleet management, so there could be fuel cards, that could be electronic logging devices, compressed gases. So, if you're welding or something like that, those, there's things there, or propane. Packaging and shipping, office supplies, uniforms, linens, facility supplies, less than truckload. All those are sort of areas that we have basically inside knowledge, because we've done over 28,000 analysis for businesses. So we kind of know really what we should be able to save. Now, until we get in there and do that for a client, we can't give them an actual on that. But that, that's just as an example, right? For that. And in many instances, like, we're talking thousands, if not tens of thousands of dollars that that client can all of a sudden claw back that they were paying before, right?
Yeah.
And our model's really simple. Like, we do that initial no cost analysis for no, obviously no cost, right? It's free. Because we're confident that we should be able to save something. How we make money is we take a portion of the savings that you realize at the time you start realizing it, for a period of time. But during that time, we're also doing quarterly analysis and making sure that you're saving the most that you should be able to save. So the real value add is, think about it like, we're going to try to save you some money, but then you're in essence hiring us to be on the phone with all these vendors, to play the get transferred game, to finally get to the person and have that negotiation with them. And we've got the knowledge to kind of do that. Like, if someone wants to do it on their own, I'm sure there's a YouTube channel and they can try to do that. But then all the time, so there's just that time and cost and savings to go with it. It's just kind of like plumbing. If my hot water heater goes out, I'm going to call the plumber. I'm sure I could get a YouTube video and try to do it, but I don't want to mess around with it, right? Type thing. There's a cost and a convenience and an expertise to have someone do it professionally, and that's going to stand behind it for sure. And so that's kind of where we're at, right? Like, we're significantly, and people are able to take that money and reinvest it in their business, maybe give their employees a little bit of a raise, right? We're in tough times. We're in inflation. So the ability to be able to do this is can be helpful for that business owner, retaining clients, or maybe getting that piece of equipment that they kind of need or would like to need that can help them kind of level up their game in terms of what they're able to offer.
Very valuable, very valuable. And like you said, quite time consuming. Maybe you could work to do one thing or two things, but to really evaluate the whole system and all of the different areas, it's certainly beneficial to have somebody else do that for you. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Interestingly, what are some of the misconceptions that people have about what you do?
Misconceptions, they're first thing and foremost, right? It's like let's be real. Like if I get on the phone or I meet with someone, the first thing is, okay, what's the catch? How are you trying to screw me over type thing, right? Like we all are. Like, let's just, call it out there. And there's no catch. The reason I did this is because I want to help small business owners and try to realize money for them. And that's why we kind of do this. That's why we do this. No upfront. We will make money on the back end if that person decides to go with us. So the thing I guess I want to hit home is like, if I talk to someone and be like, hey, there might be these categories that we can save you. And so the plumber, hey, we might be able to save you on your wireless, maybe on your credit card processing, possibly your waste. What I need you to do is just sign an agreement that you're willing to let us do what we need to do, that you're going to give us the information, access to the accounts to be able to do this, and that we're going to present this to you. And then at the end of the day, you can decide whether we go beyond that step or not, right? At a minimum, they're like, hey, for 20 minutes or so of your time, like, we can save you this much, but maybe it's not worth it, or we can save you this much and it's worth it. At that point, if we decide to go what we call into production, that's when we start making some money. But it's nothing like give us, $3,000 for us to do this analysis up front. Like a lot of times you have to spend money to make more money, right? You've got to invest in something this is, if we do this, your bottom line increases, but we are getting only paid out of some savings that we found for you. So some people are like, that's great. You found lost money. I'm happy to share in that. And, some people, obviously they can't get past that. Because they, unfortunately everyone thinks everyone else is taking advantage of one another. Hopefully that's not hopefully they've gotten out of me like I'm not trying to do that. So that's the biggest misconception about that, right? And then the other thing is like our analysts are the ones calling these vendors, and they're the ones on hold, and they're the ones getting the runaround, and they're the ones that so there's a lot of time and effort. And then obviously because we've done it, there's the expertise there. So that's just, that's a big, misconception. They just think like we're just going to spit this out because we have like a cheat sheet that we can just use automatically. And it's not standardized that way. The other thing I think I just want to kind of hit home with, and this maybe goes more towards segueing into a little bit of just knowledge or information for everybody, is I had no idea, but credit cards are the Wild West, like merchant processing, credit card processing. You sign up and it's like, oh, your credit card processing is, I don't know, 2.5% asterisk. Well, when you look at that asterisk, Eddie, there are literally 7-10 pages of fine print tables of different things. And I'll just highlight it. Like, you get charged a different fee for inserting a chip and signing versus tapping in a lot of places.
Wow.
Obviously, you're going to get a different one where if you're taking it over the phone versus inputting it online, those are just some high level things there, because there's some components in that credit card processing that people are just not aware of. It's called the interchange rates. So this is the charges that are done, right? Whether it's swiped, keyed, taken over the phone, etc. They're assessing sort of risk on things, like are there going to be chargebacks, whatever. And this can all be set by different sort of credit card processors that they're building in their profit on that. And what we have found is we can try to save money by getting the reduction in their current rate structure, because you got that. Just go back to our example, like you started out and you're a one-man plumbing company, and now you're like you've got 8 trucks out there. Well, your volume's a whole lot more. Chances are the credit card company or the processor is like, hey man, good news, we're saving you a bunch of money. We're going to take money out of our pocket to save you money.
Right.
Most are not going to do that, right? So we're going to do that, changing the rate structure. We can change vendors, or we'll go out there. And that's the thing, is like, we are not representing a telephone company or a credit card company or a shipping company. We're independent, and we're going out into the open market to negotiate the best deal for our clients. And we're trying to optimize, the best system for people to use depending on whatever cost category they are. And the credit card processing, like, we're optimizing the processing environment for them, introducing things. So maybe the plumber has just been taking things over the phone, like, because I just had that a couple of weeks ago. I had to call into the office and give them the credit card, where, if the guy could just swipe it right there on a tablet, would have been a little bit more convenient, right? Type situation. So those are things that we find typically, people just are unaware of, right? And I think I'm just kind of, I'm rambling on there a little bit, Eddie. So maybe, I don't know if I need to reset any of that, but
no, I would just want to just jump in and just say, I see how, you could start out and you're only doing, 10,000 a month or 20,000 a month. And now you've grown and you're busy and you're doing $100,000 a month. Definitely you would see that there would be a good reason to renegotiate. And certainly the company's not going to call you and say, hey, now that you're doing 100,000, we're going to drop our rates for you. They're not going to do that. Exactly.
No. Yeah. They're definitely not going to do that. Because we're not a merchant credit card processor, other people are out there, right? So these plumbers are a plumbing or tradesmen, like, they're getting calls all the time. Like, I can save you on your telecom, and the people trying to sell them obviously are trying to help them save a little bit of money, but they're building in their profit on things, and they'll do things like, hey, I'll give you a free, $600, terminal for you to swipe your credit cards. Right. And that's like, that's sort of the freebie that gets you to maybe switch over. But they're going to continue to making money for as long as they keep processing on that contract. Whereas we don't take any of that. We're just basically helping on the cost savings for a certain amount of time. And then after that, it's all theirs. So, which is cool, for sure. I think that's a real fair way to do it.
What's some of the, what's 2 or 3 of the important things that you want business owners, small, medium-sized business owners, to know about your services?
Yeah, I mean, first and foremost, right? It's like, it's a no cost, no obligation up front. We're independent, right? We are going out on the behalf of that business owner to try to find the best deal with their current vendor. And then we're trying to go out and try to find alternative, 1 or 2 more alternatives. Because it might be easier for them just to be like, hey, if I can save 15% and stay with my current vendor, that's more valuable for me than saving 30% and having to switch a vendor, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or the other person might be motivated by that and say, you know what, it's worth it. I'm going to save the 30% and I'm just going to go
Yeah,
over.
yeah,
I'm going to switch over to the new credit card vendor, or I'm
yeah.
going to switch over to the new phone lines, or I'm going to use voice over internet VoIP, right, instead of landlines. It's
Mm.
like
Mm-hmm.
it's worth that implementation to save that
Mm-hmm.
type of money.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Absolutely. So I know that you have other areas besides credit card processing and some of the things you
Mhm.
talked about. Is there any other areas you want to talk about, or would you rather do it by talking about specific types of businesses?
No, I think let's just keep it general and maybe go from that, and we'll see where
Okay.
it's at. Maybe we'll add on a couple just specific businesses, but the other one that
Mm-hmm.
I've found is we put it under the category of telecom, and so that's, think about it. That's your telephone, so that's your hard lines, physical phone lines. It can be VoIP. A lot of companies are using VoIP now.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it can be your wireless, right? So your cell phones, your mobile phones, and then it's your internet. And obviously those phone companies are notorious for not giving you the best deal, right? And
Mm-hmm.
they're great at adding little extra fees here or there. And it's like it's $5 here or $6 there, and it's like it's not worth like the bookkeeper or someone or the CFO to try to like get on the phone, right? And you're not going to get the person that you need to right away. Again, that's like what I'm hitting home as is you're going to get transferred all around and be on hold for hours. And that someone is probably by intention, right? Or design, you just like, I forget it. One of the ones that I love to kind of use as an example is, especially if people have had mobile phone lines for a long time. On business, sometimes we're seeing that they still have, for example, Verizon GPS enabled for
Mm.
that mobile phone line. That was the old Verizon Navigator, and they're paying like
Mm.
$7 a month to have that. Well, Waze, Apple Maps or Google Maps are free. Like
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
you don't need the
Yeah.
navigator anymore, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Um, but if you have like, think about that, that's $7. Like you have 10 phone lines, that's $70. That's a month, that's $840 a year. You can do something with $840 a year. You could have
Sure.
with 10 people, 10 trucks, like you can probably have a pretty nice employee appreciation, barbecue or something like that as an example, or do
Yeah.
something with it, right? So,
Yeah.
and that's just a little small like billing example of something, that a service that you don't need. And we'll actually go through and audit every phone line and see if they're active and see what needs to be done there and look for billing errors. There's just so much out there that's kind of, they sneak in or they add in there, or you just miss, that most people are just, you're just on autopilot at some point, just keep paying the bill. And if it goes up a
Mm-hmm.
little bit, you got other things again, right? It's prioritizing time. Like you got other things to do.
Yeah.
Even if you're the bookkeeper, it's like, I got to work on getting payroll for the employees. Like that's way more important than trying to see if I can save some bucks here or there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, what about different industries? So, is there um, more industries that there's bigger savings, or is there specific industries that you have a lot of knowledge in?
Mm-hmm. I think the great thing is that, because Schooly Mitchell's been around for 20 years, the analysts are not me. You don't want me doing the analysis. Like I
Oh,
give it to
okay.
them, and they're the ones doing the analysis, right? They're the ones that are in the trenches doing this all the time. I would say, the main categories that we are seeing, um, good savings for I'll call it the small business. So that's, you know, someone probably doing, 500K plus in revenue, right? Where it's like significant for them, is definitely in the telecom, right? So that's your phone, cell phones, internet, VoIP. We can help out on that one. If they're doing, B2C, right? And there's a lot of credit cards, like the merchant processing, like we're seeing that, right? And we're able to replicate everything from, the terminals to virtual terminals to the point of sales to the little swipers on your mobile phones or tablets. The shipping, right? Small package shipping, right? If you're doing a lot of, shipping out using FedEx, DHL, there's some significant savings that can be had there by, having someone like us go out there and negotiate on your behalf. If you're a little bit of a larger company, then we start running into, like, for example, anyone that has a lot of fleets, so 5 or plus more vehicles that have to do, are required to have electronic logging devices. That was, again, one of these things that was sort of government mandated in the United States. And so people just had to, some people just got one just to get one to be in compliance, right? And and that's one where we're seeing that's a newer category that we're seeing some significant savings. And then, along with that, coupled with that is, fuel, like for if they're doing, fleet cards or, even have a fuel tank because they're big enough, like we're seeing really good savings with that. And then the waste, as long as it's not, city or municipality, mandated, going out there and negotiating for that has been really significant. And that can be any industry, medical, et cetera, right? But, in the trades, you can't put it in the dumpster at the job site or whatever like that, then you got to take it back, right? And so we're seeing that for sure. And then, I have seen for, customers that are doing, facility, supplies, if they've got a pretty large location or they're a cleaning company, et cetera, spending more than, basically, if you're spending more than, $800 a month on like facility supplies, that's office and cleaning and napkins and shipping supplies and all that. We're seeing significant savings with that.
Interesting. Yeah. So, I know that you're going to give me a link, right? So that I could post a link so that people can go to sign up for their free evaluation so they could take advantage of it. I know lots of people right now off the top of my head that I know would benefit from, having that analysis and looking at what they possibly could save to increase that bottom line, immediately, right? Let's talk about, I know that what you mentioned that you have I asked you what books that are important books that you like to recommend. What's the one about sales and why? Why is that sales book important to you?
So the one that might be more interesting to me might not be the one for everyone for here on the podcast, but I have one that I think is a great book for blue collar trades or service industry. And that one is Pride in Performance, Keep It Going. And that's by Les Schwab, the tire guy. Right. And the reason I think that's a great one is he's just got a really compelling story. And I have found that autobiographies or biographies of people that are successful are more valuable than the guy selling you the latest sales methodology or whatever else. Right. And just on that one, Les Schwab had some really great sort of some takeaways here, and I thought I just kind of like parse those, right? So again, that's Pride in Performance, Les Schwab. He's like, you may not be smarter than everyone else, which is certainly me, but you can know more about something than everybody else, right? So
Right.
you can be an expert in something and be a niche on that. And the one that, especially as you get bigger in business, that's really important and is to get out of the office and help the customers stay on the front line or try to be engaged on the front line as much as possible. Now I realize if you've got like 10, 12 guys or even more and you're really big, like that's tough, but getting it out there to be able to do that is, you're going to get immediate feedback. Even if you're just, shadowing one of the guys, that works for you or the gals that work for you, that's valuable sort of real life feedback that you wouldn't get otherwise. And that's so important, right? And that gives you a chance to kind of question those. And then, we talked about it a little bit earlier, but employees are inherently self-interested. We're all like, what's in it for me, right? So ensuring that your company's incentive structure aligns with, the reality of that they're self-interested, right? So, and I would say that you want them, right? You want them to do a great job. You want them to be treat the customers well, and obviously, ideally, if you can, you want them to get more business. So, creating incentive structures to do that, that really kind of get down to basic principles. It doesn't have to be super complex, but if it can be 2 or 3 things, and everyone knows that that's what they're supposed to do, is huge. And I, and how you get to that is you never take advantage of a customer or employee. But you certainly can take advantage. You can take every advantage you can over your competition, right?
Yes.
You can do that. And that kind of maybe like, that's where I want to maybe circle back to like where we were talking originally, about, company and sales and marketing. And what I think is really important is you as a company need to identify your brand. Branding is so important before you start getting out there and do any advertising and marketing. Like, what's your company's persona? The younger generation calls it vibe, right? What's their vibe? My girls, they're in college, like, that's the vibe. And you kind of go with that, right? If you're going for, the Beverly Hills of the world and those type of customers, well, then you need to have a company persona that plays on that. You need to have it look like that. You need to have your employees be able to speak with them and handle that, right? And that's who you need to focus on. If you are, just sort of the average, middle class person or whatever like that, and do something to stick out. Like everyone's AAA plumbing or AA plumbing or easy plumbing or fix it plumbing. Like, have a little bit of personality that's going to help you stick out from the crowd, right? And then I know people. It's hard because you're always like always hiring or whatever like that. I just saw a truck, always hiring. I wouldn't put that, right? Like that means like, oh man, that's a revolving door. Like, okay, like what's going on here? But so I would say where you can hire the best people, but don't necessarily hire them because they're the greatest in that trade, like the greatest plumber or the greatest electrician. It's good to have those people on your team, but if you're customer facing, hire some people that you can maybe train up, but have great integrity and have great likability, right? Like that first instinct, I kind of like you, right? Like that, you can always train someone to the other stuff. And, the thing we always kind of laugh about is like, people will always have their job descriptions for the person they're trying to hire away the competition's, people. well, if that person's from the competition is leaving to go over to you for no other particular reason, then maybe, you don't know. Like maybe they are just not the right person and they just kind of like job hopping around there or whatever. Like you just need to identify who your company is, the brand, who are the people that fit that brand and your culture and your personality. That's really important. And then, understanding the customer expectations and service, right? And do you train for that? Like take a little time to do that, or a podcast or whatever. And, you've got to be intentional about that. It's not just a one-time thing. It's maybe, once a month, like, hey, we're going to spend an hour in the morning and we're going to get breakfast burritos and we're just going to go over this and talk about it. And then I want to hear from you guys. Like, what are you feeling? What are you finding out in the field? Like any ideas how things can do better? Like you empower your people, trust them, and they'll give you the greatest ideas because they're on the front lines. And then obviously being very grateful for your employees and saying thank yous with that, but making sure that they are thanking the customers for choosing them. And it doesn't hurt to ask, like, hey, do I knocked on any of your neighbors? Like, if you get a chance, just tell them, like, if we did a great job, like, we'd love to get a referral. If you can think of anybody, let us know, right? And whatever, we'll give you a gift card to the local coffee shop down the street.
Yeah. I like what you were saying about when you're hiring to, hire on the person's strengths, that they are likable, that they are easy to talk to, they listen, right? Those types of things, especially if you're hiring them for sales. One thing that's interesting is sometimes business owners and business leaders are somewhat intimidated by somebody who maybe might seem too confident. Right. I had a discussion with somebody who runs a great organization recently, and their comment was, I'm not sure how my team would respond with too many alpha males on the team, and I was like,
well, there's alpha females too, for sure. Yeah,
exactly. That's true. I'm sorry. Yeah. You're right. Yeah. But in general, like I like alpha people, especially for sales, right? Because in sales, oftentimes, you're getting punched in the face, right? You got to deal with rejection, and you have to deal with, setting things up and things falling through, and then having to, redo it again, for whatever reason. And every month every month you start at zero and you're working through. So you need to have that kind of confidence and exuberance that you're going to just keep pushing straight through. And alpha people have that kind of confidence. So it's interesting. It's interesting.
I would say this: there are really good alpha people that are really hardworking, get the job done, are super professional, and get along with others and can respect others. And then there are the toxic alphas that could sell a bunch of stuff, but they're going to alienate the team. They're going to cause discord in the team, and they're probably going to, eventually make someone mad as a customer or whatever like that. So your job is to create a process where you try to filter those people out as best as possible. And that's, a couple of ways, right? Like having that interview, having a couple interviews, having some of the team members maybe sit in on the interview just to kind of get a sense for them. I've found it really good to kind of do sort of a mock sort of presentation, like, hey, we're going to spend 15 minutes. I just want you to present, our company. And you don't have to know everything about us, but you're going to pretend we're going to do a role play, like, and see if that person, how much they prepare, how professional they are. And then I like to get them in a public setting, like, hey, let's go have a coffee or let's go have a lunch. And how do they treat the people that they are having that's taking their order for the coffee or taking the order for the lunch? If you have a receptionist, how do they treat the receptionist, right? Those things are key, I think, for sure. And then at the end of the day, you have to, really just get a gut feel whether they're, you got a good sense for them or not. And then I also like, especially on salespeople, and it can be in trades too. It's like, hey, like, what are you doing to, what book are you reading? What are you doing to get better or whatever like that? You want people that are doing something to to get better.
Yes.
And I realize that maybe like if, um, someone that's a plumber probably isn't sitting there and looking for the latest advanced techniques on plumbing or whatever like that, but they have some sort of passion and they're trying to do something, whether it's like, oh, not doing much there, but I'm reading about this book about fly fishing because I really love fly fishing, right? And I'm trying to do something like that. At the end of the day, right, you want to have a good company culture, and you want people that aren't just yes people, that'll challenge you but are respectful of everybody at the end of the day. And that's where things can really, really take off. And especially I think that's probably the biggest scare is when go back on our just sort of example, you start out and you got one and then two or three or four, and then at some point you're like, how do I keep all these people busy, right? All my tradespeople busy. Now I've got to make a decision. Do I hire a business development person or salesperson? And that first hire can be so scary. So encourage, like if they do, like I'll have my LinkedIn there. Feel free to reach out to me, or, definitely you should always reach out to your peers or other people and just kind of find out like, how it worked out for them and stuff, because, you might get it wrong that first time, right? Especially if you're just doing it on your own, but don't get discouraged by that. But hopefully the things that we were just kind of talking about, put the odds in your favor that you're going to hire the right person to keep your people busy, right? Like that's what you want.
Yeah. Or if it's, am I going to spend $20,000 a month advertising, right? It's the risk reward type of situation. Do I hire this person who can handle this and is going to help me do that? And that's scary, me giving them the ability to do that and the task. And I know sometimes business owners task people to death, right?
Yeah.
They just task people to death instead of getting them involved with what the goal is that we're trying to reach. And, we're trying to work towards this direction, and I want you to help me to get to this direction, but this is where we're going. And anything you can help me, anything you understand that to help us get there, please let me know, because that's what we want to do. Absolutely. Yeah, team culture is important, right? You want to have that team atmosphere that, people work together, right? As a team.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
And it's tough because Tim Kite, this guy that has this, it's E plus R equals O, which is kind of a cool thing, but he has this great saying, it's like, your company culture is not the posters on your wall. It's what they're doing when no one's around. Right. And if they're not doing it right when you're not around, then there's probably either some training that needs to be done, some conversations to kind of get everybody aligned, and that's important, right? Like I coached like youth soccer for 10 plus years, and after a while it took me to realize like everyone has to understand their purpose and our ultimate goal of what we're doing, and if at least everyone has that, it's a lot easier for people to, when they're not quite sure about what's going on, they can use those guiding principles to make the right decision.
Yeah. So, Pete, we've talked about a lot of stuff. Is there anything that I haven't asked you about that you want to talk about?
No, I think I appreciate the time to this. Hopefully everyone listening, hopefully you got one or two things out of this that makes sense. If you are even vaguely kind of curious to see how much you might be overspending on something, I encourage you to reach out to me. I'll have my links in the podcast here. The thing again, just to hit out is we've done 28,000 plus of these cost analysis. We work on a contingency basis, so it's a no risk scenario really. Mm-hmm. And from that point, especially with inflation and everything else, right, it'd be nice to put some dollars in people's pockets, and
sure.
I'd like to do that where I can. So.
For more information and monthly topics of interest, please go to transformyourfuture.com and join our newsletter.